Hello, I'm the 10-minute English teacher. Let's get you exam ready. Today we're thinking about Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, and I'm going to be providing you with a guide and summary to Stave 4. Before we get going, don't forget to like and subscribe. There are plenty of things on the channel to help you get exam ready. Okay, Stave 4. In front of you now are 8 key images, and each one of those refers to a significant moment that takes place in Stave 4. By the end of our time together, you should be able to recall exactly what happens in Stave 4. So it starts with the ghost of Christmas yet to come, who we've been introduced to at the end of the previous chapter. Scrooge stands before the ghost of Christmas yet to come, a ghost wholly associated with darkness, gloom and mystery. Scrooge is fearful, but keen to learn from the spirit. Scrooge is then taken to the city, and in the city he hears many news speaking about the funeral of someone who has died. Jokes are made at the dead man's expense, and Scrooge wonders why he might be being shown such scenes, but we're inclined to think it might be Scrooge that they speak of. Then we've got a trip to Old Joe's. So Scrooge is taken to Old Joe's shop in a wretched and obscure part of town. Items stolen from the dead person's home are being sold to Old Joe for him to sell on. The laundress, charwoman and undertaker's man have all taken all sorts of things, including the shirt the dead man was wearing to be buried in. Scrooge is then shown a body underneath a sheet. He's taken briefly to see this, and the ghost motions for Scrooge to lift the sheet. He's unable to find the courage to do so. After that, Scrooge demands to see some emotion from the dead man's passing, and he's shown 2 parents relieved that their creditor has died, which means that they might avoid financial ruin. This moment references the worries and fears Charles Dickens' parents suffered when they were unable to pay their creditors back. We're then taken to the Cratchits for a second time, and Tiny Tim has passed away. Bob consoles his family as they speak about Tiny Tim's passing, and he sits beside the boy's body in his bedroom. It's understandably a contrasting scene to their happier Christmas in the previous chapter. And then the ghost of Christmas yet to come takes Scrooge to the graveside of the unknown man who has died. Scrooge puts the pieces together and he is shown his gravestone with his name upon it. Scrooge is terrified, desperate and full of remorse, and he begs for a chance to change these shadows and live an altered life. And then the ghost disappears. Scrooge tries to grab the ghost in desperation, and it shrinks and collapses into a bedpost, leaving Scrooge back in his bedroom and back in the present. So to take it further, there are those 8 images again. You could write a sentence or 2 of those to make sure that you can confidently summarise the chapter. And if you can't, use the play bar to return to some of those key moments so that you can know them confidently. Okay, it's time for Quotes to Know. So the ghost of Christmas yet to come is full of gloom and mystery. And we've also got the darkness by which it was surrounded, which is something that you can reference, that binary opposition of darkness versus light, evident again in this chapter. Scrooge is taken to the city and he's referred to as Old Scratch by the people talking about the funeral. Old Scratch is an archaic term for the devil. So the message there is, if you live a life of selfishness and greed, you will die, and your life will be something that is ridiculed by others, and you'll be treated with no respect, which is then something that's echoed when we're taken to Old Joe's shop. When Tiny Tim is dead, we've got some great key references to learn. We've got the noisy little Cratchits were still as statues in one corner, direct contrast to the Cratchits of the previous chapter, and the idea of them being statues suggests that the passing of Tiny Tim has affected all of them forever. Bob says, "My little, little child," in a great moment of pathos, and Charles Dickens in his narrative says, "Tiny Tim, thy childish essence was from God," another romanticising of childhood from him. And we've got Scrooge at his graveside. He says, "If the courses be departed from, the ends will change," which is a fantastic message for the reader. And Scrooge begs to change these shadows by living an altered life. So if you want to take that further, here are some of those key references. Can you recall the words that are missing? And if you can't, feel free to use the play bar to recall them in order to know those quotes confidently. Okay, time for analysis. So messages for the reader. Any message for Scrooge is also intended as a message for Charles Dickens' middle-class Victorian readers. The first ghost tells us to change and be happier. The second ghost tells Scrooge it's a moral obligation. And the ghost of Christmas yet to come emphasises the idea of consequence in the afterlife if one does not change. We've got darkness versus light as another binary opposition that is evident in this chapter. So Scrooge faces suffering in the afterlife unless he finds redemption. This idea in the narrative is symbolised in the opposition of darkness and light. The symbolism of light and darkness is prevalent in Stave 4. The ghost of Christmas yet to come is associated with darkness in contrast with the 2 preceding ghosts. And that reflects the idea of consequence in the afterlife, linking back to the darkness of Stave 1 and the suffering of Jacob Marley. And a little bit of context for you to consider. Charles Dickens wanted to change the attitudes of his middle-class Victorian readers to the poor. They would have never been in the home of a working poor family, so he takes them again in this chapter into the Cratchits' house. The situation that the parents face is referenced in Stave 4. Caroline's fears for her family are those that Dickens' mother faced before her financial ruin. Okay, check out the other videos on my channel. I'll continue to add content. Feel free to ask something you'd like to see me cover in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share, and keep advising.